On April Fool's Day, my boss, who was also my girlfriend, asked me to hand over a $30 million account to the new intern. I refused, and for that, I earned the scorn of the entire office. It's April Fool's Day, for crying out loud. Can't he take a joke? The rumors spiraled out of control until I was forced to resign. My girlfriend just smirked, giving the intern my job that very same day. A year later, I was a rising star in the industry, while her company was on the brink of collapse. I threw her own words back in her face. You love jokes so much, don't you? How'd you manage to joke your company into bankruptcy? On April Fool's Day, I had just closed a massive $30 million deal. But my girlfriend, Sarah, frowned and cautiously asked, Daniel, Leo really needs this account to get his footing in the company. Why don't you just let him have it? The intern, Leo, chimed in, yeah, Daniel, you're so talented. I'm sure you can land another deal like this in no time. Looking at their faces, I felt sick to my stomach. One was my first love from college. The other was the protege I had personally mentored from the ground up. And now, they were plotting against me, trying to climb the ladder by feeding on my hard work. I shook my head and refused flatly, giving her no room for argument. I knew exactly what Leo was capable of, and giving him this account would be a surefire way to ruin the deal. To my surprise, Sarah's face darkened with anger, and she slammed her hand on the table in front of everyone. Daniel, after everything this company has done for you over the years, you won't even give up a single deal, she fumed. You're such a disappointment. With that, she turned and stormed off. I knew she was expecting me to back down first. For years, I had always been the one to give in to her, but not this time. I wasn't going to. Seeing me stand my ground, Leo shot me a faint smile before quickly running after Sarah. Watching them leave together, practically attached at the hip, I felt a pang of confusion. When had those two gotten so close? I had hoped the matter would just blow over, but someone clearly had other plans. By the next day, the story had spread throughout the entire office, and my colleagues were whispering behind my back. I was in the middle of a presentation, and just after I'd gotten the room to quiet down, the chatter started up again. I clenched my fists, trying to keep my composure. Who does Daniel think he is, ordering us around? He's just a freeloader living off the boss. If you ask me, this company would be better off without him. I couldn't take it anymore and slammed my fist on the podium, glaring at the troublemakers. If you don't want to be here, you can leave. Why should we be the ones to leave? Yesterday was April Fool's Day. The boss was just joking with you, and you had the nerve to embarrass her in front of everyone. The colleague who shouted this was glaring at me, furious. If this presentation weren't critical to the company's future, I wouldn't have wasted a second on them. But to my shock, they actually started walking out of the conference room. Sarah is the one in charge now. Who the hell are you? Acting like he owns the place, what a joke. As they egged each other on, I finally understood their true motive. They were just trying to tear me down to suck up to Sarah, hoping to get on her good side. I didn't care about their petty games. My only goal had always been the company's success. But I never imagined this was only the beginning. Daniel, Sarah said, everyone is pretty unhappy with you right now. I'm going to let Leo take over your director position for the time being. It was April Fool's Day, so I'll let your little outburst slide as a joke. For now, you'll work as his subordinate. Once you help him land the next big contract, I'll consider giving you your job back. Sarah leaned back in her executive chair, looking down on me from on high. I stood in the middle of her office, where she had deliberately pulled up all the blinds so our colleagues outside could see everything. I knew exactly what this was. She was putting me in my place. I negotiated that deal. I brought in that revenue. Why should I hand it all over just because you say so? I argued back. You know perfectly well that you were the one who begged me to bring Leo along. With all these rumors flying around now, who do you think really benefits from all this? I tried to patiently explain the situation to her. We had been together for so long, and I couldn't just stand by and watch her make a terrible mistake, not when I still loved her. But just then, a young man burst into the office. Daniel, how could you talk about me like that behind my back? Leo exclaimed. Did you think you did all the work on that deal? I put in my fair share of effort too. Or are you questioning Sarah's judgment? His eyes were sharp, filled with the kind of reckless confidence that reminded me of myself back in college. Sarah seemed taken aback for a moment, her gaze fixed on Leo. His words seemed to erase any doubt she might have had, and her expression hardened. I'm the boss here. Either you step down gracefully, or you can pack your things and get the hell out. I clutched my chest, struggling to breathe. My eyes burned with rage. I couldn't believe that years of our life together meant less to her than a few words from an outsider. Fine, I said. I'll go, but you will pay me my commission. Sarah shot up from her chair and slammed her hands on the desk. Is that all you care about? Money? Fine, I'll give you money, but you're only getting half. The rest is going to Leo. Then she added, and as of right now, we're through. I turned and walked out without another word. As I crossed the main office floor, a few colleagues predictably stepped up to taunt me. Well, if it isn't our esteemed Director Miller. What happened? Did you finally get kicked to the curb after all that freeloading? From now on, it's going to be Director Vance. The next time we see you, we won't exactly be in the same league. I looked up at these sycophants and a slow smile spread across my face. April Fools. The real fools here are all of you. Good dogs don't block the path. Move, I snarled. You, one of them shouted, raising his fist with a contorted expression, but I didn't even flinch. After a tense moment, he lowered his arm. My sudden outburst, so out of character for my usually calm demeanor, left them speechless. They couldn't even muster a threat. They were nothing but a pack of cowards who preyed on the weak. I let out a cold laugh and walked out of that company for good. Moments later, Sarah had already posted on Facebook announcing our breakup. Her caption read, "Finally single. Time for this girl to start living her life." The photo she posted even included the shadowy figure of a man in the background. Our old college friends flooded the comments. I've been telling Sarah to dump that mooch for ages. Congrats on your freedom. Beautiful, another wrote. I think that Leo guy is great. He's handsome and so thoughtful. Sarah, you should pay more attention to the people right in front of you. The comments went on and on, most of them blaming me. In the eyes of her friends, I was just a worthless freeloader. I felt completely defeated, knowing that Sarah had been feeding them this narrative all along. Just then, a text message lit up my phone. Mr. Miller, I heard you've left your position. Would you be interested in considering an opportunity with my company? It was an offer from a major industry leader. I stared at the screen in silence. Of course, Sarah had no idea. She was busy trying to ruin my reputation, never realizing that my skills were already well known and respected throughout the industry. While she sat comfortably in her office, I was the one on the front lines fighting all the battles. Without me, what was her company even worth? I accepted the offer immediately. The terms were excellent, more than double what I was making before. After going back to my old office to finalize my resignation, I started my new job right away. On my last day, I saw Sarah sipping soup, looking blissfully happy. Daniel, thank you for leaving me, she said. It's only now that I can experience true happiness. Leo's mother made this soup for me herself. I bet you've never had anything like it. They've shown me so much love, and it's made me realize just how worthless your devotion was. You could never make me happy. I just shook my head and said nothing, which only fueled her smug satisfaction. You're such a coward you don't even have the guts to yell at me, she sneered. And you know what? In any relationship, the one who isn't loved is the real other person. That makes you the third wheel in my life because I never, ever loved you. Sarah's eyes were wide, her voice filled with a manic energy. I had to get to my new job and didn't have time for a tirade. As for her and Leo, we were broken up. It was no longer my problem. I hadn't even been gone for an hour before Sarah was already out on a date with Leo. I found myself staring at the entrance of a five-star hotel, a place Sarah and I had been to many times. Now, she was walking in hand with him, looking like a couple deep in the throes of passion. As they walked, they were practically wrapped around each other, and they checked into a room with practiced ease. I took a deep breath, drove home, and immediately pulled up the security camera footage. It was the house we shared, and for security, I had installed cameras outside and in the entryway. I hit playback, and it wasn't long before I heard the sounds of a man's heavy breathing and a woman's soft moans. Babe, are you sure he won't find out about us here? Leo's voice said. If he finds out, I'll just break up with him then, Sarah replied. Honestly, if he wasn't still useful to the company, I'd have left him ages ago. I'm sorry you've had to hide our relationship. And just like that, before they even made it fully inside, they were all over each other. Sarah and I had been together for years, and we barely even kissed. She had only known Leo for 2 months. The security system saved footage for 14 days. For 10 of those days, she brought Leo back to our house to be with him. While I was out of town closing a $30 million deal, she was in our home, in our bed, with another man. How could I not hate her for that? My phone buzzed. A deposit of $50,000 hit my account. $50,000 wasn't even a fraction of the commission I was owed. It was obvious where the rest of the money went. But I swore to myself I would get every last cent back from Sarah. I wouldn't let either of them off the hook, nor the company. A year later, my career was thriving, and I had climbed even higher. During that time, I mastered the core technology for a new project, a technology that was powerful enough to crush Summit Innovations, my old company. Summit Innovations, the company I had once been so loyal to. But the time for revenge wasn't right just yet. Over the past year, Sarah had handed complete control of the company over to Leo. She even renamed it the Vance Thompson Group. She, in turn, stepped back from the center of power, completely oblivious that her company was a house of cards about to collapse. Leo was busy exploiting every loophole he could find, slowly siphoning off all its capital. Now, they needed a massive cash infusion to fund their next project, which is why they came to my new company for an investment. As the executive overseeing the deal, I had to attend the meeting in person. It was the first time I had set foot in that building in over a year. "What are you here for?" "Sign in," the receptionist said with a frown, her tone just as condescending as I remembered. She was one of the ones who had made my last days their living hell. "If you're here begging for a handout, our CEO is busy," she sneered. "I'm here to discuss a partnership," I replied calmly. "A partnership? With you?" she scoffed. Just then, Leo appeared, escorting Sarah down the stairs. Sarah was heavily pregnant and looked exhausted, but she still wore an air of smug satisfaction. When she saw me, her face twisted into a disgusted frown. "Didn't I give you $50,000? Did you burn through it already? I don't have a dime for you. So get lost," she snapped. Leo dropped his arm from around Sarah and lunged toward me. "Sarah is my wife now. Stop harassing her. Security, get this stranger out of here," he yelled. Then his eyes fell on the junior associate standing behind me, and his demeanor instantly changed to one of fawning servitude. "You must be Mr. Miller. We are so looking forward to working with you." The other employees swarmed around my associate, offering him tea and sliced fruit. As they were about to usher him inside, completely ignoring me, my associate finally snapped out of his confusion. "Wait, you've got the wrong person," he shouted. "This is Mr. Miller. I'm his assistant." "What? He's Mr. Miller?" someone muttered. "This has to be a joke, right? It's not April Fool's Day again, is it?" Leo's smile was frozen on his face, and I could hear his teeth grinding. "Yeah, right. He's just a mooch. How could he possibly be a director now?" one of them whispered. "Besides, I heard that company is doing way better than we are. We fired him. Why would a top-tier company pick him up?" My former colleagues murmured in agreement, and the tension in the room seemed to ease. I pulled a contract from my briefcase and smiled faintly. "I am Daniel Miller. If your company is no longer interested in this partnership, I can leave right now." The room fell dead silent. Sarah, ever the professional when it mattered, was the first to regain her composure. "Our apologies for the poor reception, Mr. Miller. Please forgive us. Shall we begin our discussion?" Leo sullenly positioned himself between Sarah and me, blocking my view of her. I saw her hand twitch, as if she wanted to push him aside, but ultimately, she did nothing. Leo stood at the podium, clicking through a presentation about profit margins and synergies. This time, I was the one sitting in the audience. "The profits your company keeps mentioning are purely speculative," I interrupted coldly. "You can't even guarantee them yourselves, so you certainly can't convince my company to invest." Leo was left standing awkwardly on the stage. Sarah finally spoke up, her voice sharp. "Daniel, don't push your luck. Even if you hold this deal over my head, I will never get back together with you. Besides," she continued, "that whole thing a year ago was just a harmless joke. You're the one holding a grudge. What right do you have to stand here and lecture us?" I propped my chin on my hand and let out a soft sigh. "I'm not sure what our personal history has to do with the business at hand, CEO Thompson." "A joke?" I asked. "Did you two just keep joking around until you ran your company into the ground?" Sarah finally seemed to realize her mistake. Since she still needed my help, she had no choice but to back down. "It was my fault," she mumbled. "You should take some time to reconsider your proposal," I said, standing up. "This level of preparation is hardly enough to warrant a signature." I gathered my things to leave with my associate. Leo moved to block my path, but Sarah held him back. At least she still had some sense. As I walked through the lobby, I could hear some of my old colleagues whispering. I paused and remarked loud enough for them to hear. "If this is how CEO Thompson manages her staff, it's no wonder this company is on the verge of collapse." Sarah had no choice but to sharply order them to be quiet. Just as I was leaving, I overheard an older woman complaining loudly. "You're a Vance now, part of our family. How dare you yell at me in front of an outsider? Have you no shame? In a place like this?" She was clearly one of the relatives Leo had installed in the company, someone who had been throwing her weight around for some time. It was like watching dogs fight over a bone. Eventually, after they conceded 80% of the profits in the deal, we signed the contract. On the day of the signing, both Leo and Sarah were flushed with anger, but they had to swallow their pride and be polite to me. This was only the beginning. I had much more planned for them. Leo and Sarah were getting married. It was a shotgun wedding, and after the ceremony, Sarah would be on maternity leave for a long time, leaving Leo completely unchecked. To save their failing company, they came up with a plan. Use their wedding to generate buzz, creating a public love story to boost their stock price. It was a cliche, but often worked. Investors love a good story, and a power couple, deeply in love and building an empire together, was a narrative that sold. What a fairy tale romance. I'm obsessed, people wrote online. This is like something out of a movie. I'm crying. I watched the wedding trend on Twitter. They spun a tale for the public about being college sweethearts and professional soulmates. They framed their company's recent struggles as a test of their love, when in reality, it was just a massive financial hole dug by their own incompetence. But how could I possibly let them get away with that? I started by bribing a member of the hotel staff where the reception was being held. There was a giant LED screen there. "We are the love of each other's lives," Leo announced at the wedding. "And now, we'd like to share a video of our journey together." It was supposed to be a touching slideshow of their memories, but the screen remained blank. Then, it flickered to life, not with photos, but with security footage and audio. "Are you sure Daniel won't find out you brought me here?" a man's voice asked. "Of course not," a woman replied. "You're the one I love. All he cares about is work. He'll never know." What followed was a scene not suitable for any audience. Sarah, heavily pregnant and clumsy, tried to rush the stage to block the screen, but it was massive. All she could cover was a tiny fraction of the damning evidence. Leo's face was pale as a ghost as he screamed for someone to turn it off. The screen went black, but it was too late. The high-definition cameras they had set up to live stream their perfect wedding had already broadcast the entire sordid affair to the world. "Are you kidding me? I thought this was a real love story, but it's just two scumbags who screwed someone over to get ahead." The online comments exploded. "What kind of man is Leo?" being the other guy. "Looks like he's the real freeloader here." And Sarah is just as bad. Does she really not know who built that company for her? It's disgusting. In an instant, public opinion turned viciously against them. Their company's stock price plummeted to an all-time low. Sarah wanted to call off the wedding right then and there, but Leo's relatives blocked her way. "You're pregnant. Who else would want you besides my son?" his mother shrieked. "After embarrassing our family like this, you'd better make it up to us." The scene was already chaos, but with his relatives stirring up trouble, even Sarah's patience, which was thin to begin with, finally snapped. The only reason she had put up with them for so long was for Leo's sake. Pushed to her limit, she shoved the woman in front of her. "Get out of my way. All of you get out. This is none of your business." Leo immediately rushed to shield his relatives. "They're my family," he roared. "How dare you disrespect them? Are you trying to humiliate me in front of everyone?" The scene descended into complete chaos. The perfectly planned wedding was ruined. Sarah became so distraught that she nearly miscarried, and any affection between her and Leo shattered. "It was you who played that video, wasn't it?" Sarah said to me later. "I never knew you hated me that much." She sat across from me, her expression eerily calm. It had been a month, and some color had finally returned to her cheeks. "Ha ha, but it doesn't matter how much you hate me," she cackled. "Do you know how much I made off that $30 million deal? $10 million. And I only gave you a measly $50,000. She burst into a fit of manic, mocking laughter. "I never loved Leo. If it wasn't him, it would have been someone else. The truth is, your success was threatening me. I couldn't have you overshadowing me at my own company." I laughed too, at her arrogance, at her utter foolishness. "You're only saying all this because you want me to back off and leave him alone. Do you really think I'm stupid enough to fall for your games again? Break up with Leo," I advised. "It's your only chance to salvage anything." Sarah raised an eyebrow, a smug look on her face as if she had me cornered. "A year later, and you're still obsessed with me. But you'll always be nothing more than my lapdog. You're not worthy of me, you pathetic man. Get on your knees and beg me right now, and maybe I'll throw a little affection your way." Seeing the crazed look in her eyes as she prepared to launch into another tirade, I felt a wave of revulsion. I stood up and walked out of the cafe without another word. I had said that on purpose. Sarah was paranoid by nature, and my feigned jealousy would only make her cling to Leo more tightly. Those two couldn't be allowed to separate. They needed to be chained together, lest they go out and ruin someone else's life. They still hadn't truly paid for what they did. After that day, I didn't see or hear from Sarah or Leo for a long time. There was no news from their company either. And in this case, no news was good news. I'm not sure what made me think of them, but during a routine checkup at the hospital, I happened to see her. Sarah was in a maternity ward, her belly huge. She was surrounded by a few older women, but Leo was nowhere in sight. "Eat more. You need to have a healthy baby," one of the women insisted. "Leo is busy taking care of the company. You just need to focus on my grandson," another said. "I'm not your family's breeding machine." Sarah cried out, "Where is Leo? I'm about to give birth, and he's not even here." The older woman's expression flickered guiltily before she angrily tried to shush her. "You married him. You follow his lead. My son is out there building a career. What do you need him here for?" Sarah looked up and saw me standing there. Her face went pale, and she struggled to sit up as if to say something. I had seen enough. I turned and left. As for the beloved Leo, she was so desperate to see, I had a pretty good idea of where he was. 3 days earlier, I had run into Leo at a high-end mall. He was with a young woman, and they were acting intimately, walking arm in arm and whispering in each other's ears. It was obvious what was going on between them. "Leo, are you really buying me this purse?" the girl asked. "Of course. A beautiful young woman like you deserves nice things. Not like the one I've got at home," he muttered. The girl giggled and snuggled closer to him. "You're the best, Leo. I'm so jealous she gets to be your wife." It didn't take much to figure out what was happening. I couldn't believe that Leo, who hadn't even fully secured his position at the company, was already cheating. He was just like Sarah, a cheater and a liar. They really were a perfect match. As I thought about it, a new plan began to form. I hired a private investigator to document everything, leaving no detail unrecorded. Then, on the final day of the surveillance, I made an anonymous call to the police, reporting illegal activities at their hotel. What surprised me, however, was that the police arrested them for solicitation, not just for a simple affair. "Do you have any idea who I am?" Leo shouted as they cuffed him. "You'll regret this when I get out." Leo had grown arrogant lately, thinking he was above everyone else, which is why he was immediately taken into custody. His parents found out, of course, but they covered for their precious son, so Sarah remained completely in the dark. And that wasn't all Leo had been up to. To deal with the company's financial crisis, he had been secretly selling off company stock at bargain prices. I, in turn, had been buying up every share I could get my hands on. Soon after, Sarah gave birth, and for the first time, Leo acted like a doting, attentive partner. I wanted them to feel safe, to believe that everything was going to be okay. That was the only way to make my final move count. The deadline for our contract was fast approaching, but the Vance Thompson Group had yet to deliver on any of their promises. The reason was simple. No one there understood the core technology one had developed, the very technology their project depended on. The staff was just slacking off, and as for Leo, he had faked his college degree. He couldn't possibly comprehend the complexities involved. When the deadline arrived, our investment funds were transferred as agreed, but they failed to produce the technology, not even a prototype. Sarah was furious, but there was nothing she could do because she didn't understand the technology any better than they did. With no other options, she came to me. "Daniel, I know you were in charge of this project. You wouldn't just let us fail, would you? Besides, this is your fault. If you had explained the technology properly before you left, we wouldn't be in this mess. You should be the one to compensate us." The nerve of this woman was unbelievable. When I didn't respond, she took my silence as agreement and grew even more arrogant. "I want that technical document in my inbox by tonight. Don't be late." I neither agreed nor refused. I simply did nothing. The next day, after they had officially defaulted on the contract, I paid them another visit with my associate. This time, it was to collect the massive breach of contract penalty. When we arrived, the office was mostly empty, and there was a new face at the reception desk. Leo's mother saw me, and her eyes lit up. "You must be Daniel. Come in, have some tea." I nodded and followed her into the conference room without much thought. A minute later, Sarah walked in with a young woman I'd never seen before. "This is Leo's cousin," Sarah announced. "You two can be together." Seeing my confusion, she elaborated, "I know you're still not over me. And while we can't be together, we can still be family." I laughed inwardly and gave her a blunt refusal. "You're mistaken. I have absolutely no interest in you. I said. Sarah's face went white with rage, and she began to tremble. I'm here because your company is now required to pay a penalty 10 times the original investment. My gut told me to get out of there, so having delivered my message, I left. My company pressed them hard for the payment. If they couldn't produce the money, they would face prison time for fraud. They were desperate, but if they liquidated every asset the company had, they might just be able to scrape the money together. But what Sarah didn't know was that Leo had already secretly embezzled a significant portion of the company's funds, leaving it an empty shell. Sarah was no fool, though. She personally audited the finances and discovered Leo's theft. But the damage was done. Arguing was pointless. They sold off their remaining shares at rock-bottom prices. I bought every single one. With that, they finally had enough money to pay the debt. But there was a catch. It was only enough to save one of them from prison. A week later, Sarah came to me herself. I have no other choice. It was Leo. He tricked me, she cried. She looked utterly broken, all of her previous arrogance and pride completely gone. The stress of everything, combined with having just given birth, made her look as if she had aged a decade overnight. Please, she begged. I never should have cheated on you. Please, can you help me? I just looked at her silently. This was the woman who had caused me countless sleepless nights, who had taken my love and crushed it under her heel. And now, she was begging me for help. It was ironic. What goes around comes around. The money you have can save one of you, I said. You have a daughter now. Can you really go to prison? And can you be sure Leo won't just find another woman? He wouldn't, she insisted. He truly loves me. Stop trying to turn us against each other. Seeing her so deluded, even at a time like this, I sighed. She was hopelessly naive. I tossed a stack of photographs onto the table in front of her, concrete proof of Leo's numerous affairs. Sarah flipped through the photos, her face growing paler with each one, until the last one, when a flush of rage spread across her cheeks. 3 days before she gave birth, her loving husband had been arrested for solicitation, and his entire family had helped him cover it up. Leo was far from a saint. The photos showed him with several different women. He didn't love her, he loved her money. I sighed softly, my voice laced with suggestion. Do you still think he loves you? You have a child to think about now. I don't need to tell you what the right choice is, do I? This time, it was Sarah who stormed out. I watched her fleeing figure from the window, and I smiled. Sarah did not disappoint. Not long after, she used the money to save herself and personally ensured Leo went to prison. She demanded a divorce, but the Vance family wouldn't let her go that easily. They were parasites, and they planned to bleed her dry. In the eyes of Leo's doting mother, Sarah was the one who had ruined her son's life, and she was determined to make her pay. Sarah still had some money left, enough for her and her child to live on, but her mother-in-law and the rest of the Vances moved into her house and refused to leave. You have money for this house, but not enough to save my son, his mother screamed. I'll make sure you never spend a single peaceful day here. But without her love for Leo clouding her judgment, Sarah was no pushover. She called security and had the entire Vance family thrown out. Security could keep them out for a day or two, but they couldn't stop the Vances from showing up every single day to cause a scene, making life miserable for the entire building. At first, they just threw red paint on her door and banged on it at all hours. Then, they escalated to throwing animal blood, and the stench filled the entire hallway. When even that didn't make Sarah give in, the Vances got even more desperate. They started live streaming on social media, crying and claiming that Sarah was a corrupt businesswoman who had framed their innocent son and sent him to prison. The power of online mob justice was far more brutal than anything they had done in person. Overwhelmed by the harassment, Sarah sold her house for a low price in the middle of the night and disappeared. After that, I never heard where she went. I didn't start dating again. Instead, I resigned from my job and used the shares I had acquired to take over my old company. I renamed it Horizon Enterprises. Under my leadership, the company grew larger and more successful than ever before. As the company expanded, we needed to hire more talent. During one round of interviews, I was surprised to see some of my former colleagues. Mr. Miller, we were wrong about everything. One of them pleaded, please be the bigger person. I have a family to feed. Could you possibly? I knew what he was asking. I met his desperate gaze, and I smiled. The next second, I had security escort them out of the building. I made sure their names were permanently added to the company's hiring blacklist. After all, April Fools is all about making fools of people, isn't it? Several years later, I met the woman who is now my wife, and together, we built a happy family. One day, I was taking my daughter to an amusement park when we got stuck in traffic. A loud argument had broken out at an intersection ahead, blocking the entire road. My daughter started to get fussy, so I got out to see what the commotion was. A disheveled man was desperately clinging to a woman's clothes. She looked just as haggard. They were fighting over a small child. The more I looked at their faces, the more familiar they seemed. Then they started shouting, and I realized with a jolt, it was Sarah and Leo. "Give me the child. He's a Vance," Leo screamed. "If it wasn't for you, my life wouldn't be this miserable." Sarah screamed back, "You bitch. You think you can just run away with my kid? I'll find you no matter where you go." With the help of some bystanders, the woman managed to break free. It was Sarah, her eyes red and swollen, a far cry from the confident CO she once was. "If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have lost everything," she shrieked. "This is all your fault. The only reason I was ever with you was for your money," he retorted. They continued to scream at each other, causing such a disturbance that the police soon arrived to forcibly remove them. I just shook my head. So much for their priceless true love. Without my money propping them up, their relationship couldn't withstand the slightest hardship. My daughter leaned against me nervously. "Daddy," she whispered, "why are those people fighting?" "Because they did bad things," I said, gently stroking her hair. "My teacher said when you do bad things, you get punished," she said. I nodded and smiled. "That's right, sweetie. What goes around comes around. That's why we should always be kind to others, so we don't end up like them." My wife shot me a look. "Are you going to get back in the car or not?" I nodded quickly and hurried back. The people who had wronged me had paid the price. I had a new life, a wonderful family, and everything was perfect. Sarah's future. I fell from heaven to hell in the blink of an eye. Before I even had time to process what was happening, I had lost everything. As I was running, hiding with my child, one person kept coming to mind: Daniel. When I was with him, I never had to suffer like this. He always did whatever I wanted, never once making me feel sad or upset. But eventually, I grew bored of his devotion. Then Leo came along, and he was exciting, he was new, he was young and vibrant, not like Daniel, who only ever thought about work and had no sense of romance. Leo would take me for walks down deserted streets. We'd watch the sunrise from a mountaintop and feel the ocean breeze at dawn. Our relationship was wild, forbidden, and it made me feel alive. It was a feeling I had never known before, and it made Daniel seem dull and lifeless in comparison. One drunken night, I crossed the line, and I didn't regret it. Once you've tasted something better, how can you ever go back? I couldn't go back, so I chose to push Daniel away. He was too good, too successful, and I felt like I couldn't control him. It was just as Leo said. As long as Daniel was at the company, everyone would see him as the true leader. So, whenever he was away on business, I started spreading subtle, negative rumors about him. Leo told me his family adored me. That's why his mother brought me homemade food for weeks. I found out later how foolish I had been. They cooked for me because they were too cheap to spend money on takeout. And I, like an idiot, thought it was a sign of their genuine affection. How pathetic. Leo claimed he was doing everything for my benefit, but he was only after my money. He never loved me. The man I fell for wasn't real. It was all an act. By the time I realized the truth, the real Daniel was long gone. Luckily, even though life was hard, I still had a little money left, enough to get by for a while. That was until Leo got out of prison. We ran into each other on the street, and he grabbed me, his voice a venomous whisper. "I'm going to make your life hell forever." I'd heard threats like that before, but never had they filled me with such terror. And in that moment, I thought of Daniel. Just before the police took me away, I thought I saw a familiar figure in the crowd. Maybe my life didn't have to be this way. Maybe I could have been happy. I was greedy for something that wasn't real, and I made a terrible, irreversible mistake. I regret everything, Daniel. I'm so sorry. I wish I could start over.